Hello, welcome back everyone. Eli Montague here from the WTBA, and today I'm here to talk to you about punching someone in the head. A lot of people think that it's a bad idea to punch someone in the head with a bare fist. I used to believe this myself. Why? Because you'll break your hand, right? You hit something hard, like maybe the jaw's okay, but you punch someone square in the forehead by mistake and you break your hand, don't you? But will it really break? Are you sure about that? Let's first assume that you know how to punch. You know the correct structure, alignment, and all that stuff. You know that you should never swing an absolute full-powered punch over a long distance because there's a large chance the other guy's going to move and you're not going to hit the target you expected to hit. So you're punching with, I don't know, 70% power or something like that, and you're only using full power in a situation where there's very little chance the other guy's going to move. You've got him in a good position, or you're in very, very close range, things like that. Of course, the same applies with any weapon that you're using. If I was hitting him with the palm or the fingers, doesn't matter, that rule still applies. So we assume we know those things. So if you adhere to all the good principles of how to throw a punch, you do the right training. You train on your heavy bag, for example, without gloves. You do your focus mitt training without gloves. Are you still that likely to break your hand if you punch someone in the head? In my opinion, yes, a palm is definitely stronger. For example, if you fall onto concrete or something and you put your hands out, you're pretty much going to be okay, aren't you? But if I fell onto solid concrete and landed on my knuckles, I don't know, I certainly wouldn't naturally do it. So I think this is definitely a stronger area than this. But just because it's stronger doesn't mean that this is not strong enough for the job you need it to do. And keep in mind, of course, yes, this portion of your palm, I believe, is stronger than this portion anywhere across there of your fist. However, you can still damage your palm. Common things are, for example, if you're palming forward in some way, you can very easily catch a finger out. Someone puts up a block of some kind, whatever he does, you throw your bend a finger back, snap your finger. Another thing is just, again, bad angle. If you accidentally hit a little bit too high up instead of down on the hard part of your hand, you hit too high up, you jar your wrist. So you can break your wrist with a palm strike. I once had a lady in class, in fact. She was hitting a focus mitt, a soft focus mitt, a static soft focus mitt. Wasn't moving around, static. She did a downward palm strike like that, and I didn't see how she hit. She obviously hit at a funny angle. She broke her hand from just hitting with moderate, and she wasn't even hitting that hard because she couldn't hit that hard because she wasn't that well trained. So all I'm saying is it's very possible to break a palm as well as a fist. So even if you could make an argument to say that the fist is not as strong, let's assume that's true, that the fist is not as strong as the palm. Yes, you're sacrificing that little bit of strength, but what are you gaining for that? You're gaining that reach. The fist is like about 3 inches longer than the heel palm. So that's a big advantage in a fight. Please note, of course, I'm in no way against palm strikes. I practice Bagwai as well, which is primarily palm striking methods. I love palm strikes. They're a fantastic tool to have for your martial art. I just don't want people to negate the fist because they think that they'll break their hand. In my view, you should learn and properly train all areas of the palm. Punching, hammer fisting, palming, fingers, knife edges, back fisting, all edges of the palm. You should learn because each one will fit slightly better to a certain scenario, a certain target, and so on. It's far more common to break your hand using a fist in a street fight situation than using a palm. That's true. It is far more common. I'm pretty sure that's a fact, but not based on a percentage. You've got to remember that 99.9% of fights involve fists. How many street fights have you seen, or fights on the rugby match, or bar fights? How many people have you ever seen throw a palm strike? Doesn't happen very often. It's a specific training. Any average dude who's not really had that much training, they're going to punch. Plus, 99.9% of all martial arts styles teach punching over palms. So because it's so much more common, of course there's going to be more injuries from fists than from palms. For over 1,000 years, all the greatest masters throughout history have been punching people in the head with a bare fist. My father certainly was one of them. He advocated punching to the head with a bare fist. I think Western boxing, gloved boxing, has given people this idea that you need gloves to throw punches. Because, you know, Western boxing, they even use their gloves when they're doing their heavy bag work, their mitt training. They're doing that because they're training for a sport. They want to learn how to punch with the gloves on because that's how they're going to be fighting in the ring. So that's the best way for them to train. So they don't train without gloves on. But boxing started about 80 years before the first boxing gloves were invented. So they were all punching each other in the head for around 80 years before they started using gloves. Muay Thai, they were punching people in the head for about 700 years before they first introduced gloves to the Muay Thai sport. It's pretty hard for me to think that all those generations of people would have never thought to change from fists to palms if the palm was truly the better thing to use, gloveless. If the Muay Thai fighters and the boxers and so on were breaking their hands every time they had a fight, they're fighting regularly. It's not like a self-defense person which might fight once in 10 years. They're fighting on a regular basis. So if they were breaking their hand quite frequently, you'd think they would have changed up the way they were doing things and introduced something else like a palm. Like I said before, you should learn to use all parts of the hand. But if you want to make an argument and say, which is the best strike, palm, punch, hammer fist, back palm, whatever different weapons you can use, which one would be categorized as the best? In my opinion, it is just the normal fist, just the straight up punch fist. It's the most versatile. It fits in the most situations, at the most angles. It's got really good reach, but it also works perfectly fine right up close and things like that. The palm, for example, has a few more limitations. You can't hit the body close like this because you can't get the angle right on your palm. You lose reach as well with the palm, so that's a negative. So yeah, for me the fist is the most versatile weapon of your hand. But you know, why not train palms as well? Why not train hammer palms? Why not train back fists? Learn them all. And you might have a specific reason for yourself personally why you don't like doing a certain strike. Maybe you've got an injury that stops you wanting to do a certain strike. That's fine. Or your personal preference. You prefer a strike over another strike. Nothing wrong with that either. Just make sure that you're not throwing away a strike because of a reason which is just hearsay. If there's real good evidence and clinical studies done why you shouldn't do a particular strike, then yeah, by all means, don't do that strike. But like I've just been saying, I personally think it's a little bit more hearsay. It's a little bit more of a myth. So if that's the reason, then maybe you shouldn't throw away the strike. You're losing something special for a reason which isn't really that valid. One last thing I'll mention is that this concept a lot of people talk about, that palms are seen as being more defensive. If you punch someone, even if it's in self-defense, bystanders, witnesses, they automatically, oh, he punched him and he punched him. Oh, so it's kind of equal. They're not really sure who was the aggressor. Maybe they didn't see the fight start, perhaps. If those people didn't see the fight start, then they don't know who attacked who, you see? So it's difficult. But if you're using palm strikes, people see that as being defensive. They see fists as aggressive. So yeah, that is something to consider. If it's life or death, of course, you should be using whatever works the best, not the thing that is seen to be the more gentle or something. You just got to get the job done. If it's a not so serious situation, then by all means, it's not so serious, so you just use palms in that situation. But then the same would go for elbows. You know, you shouldn't use an elbow in that situation. You shouldn't use a hammer fist in that situation. You should be using more passive techniques because it's not so serious, so you don't need those techniques in that situation. One of my students just told me actually that in where he lives, in his state, it's apparently actually illegal to use a fist in self-defense, but it's not illegal to use a palm in self-defense. Now, I've never heard that before. I've never heard that, but I assume he's correct in what he's saying, even though I think that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard with reference. No, it's probably not the stupidest law I've ever heard. There's some pretty stupid laws out there, but that's a pretty silly law, right? Because you can still kill someone with a palm strike. It's not less likely to hurt someone with a palm than a fist. But even if that is a fact, even if that is a law in the place that you live, I personally think that witnesses, and if it goes to court and there's a jury and there's witnesses and you're talking about it and, you know, trying to get yourself off from going to prison, if the witnesses all say, oh yeah, he was there and he was saying, no, I don't want to fight, I don't want to fight, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me, then the guy attacked him and he moved and he punched him. I think people are still going to see that as you tried your best not to come into that fight. Whereas if he comes to fight you and you go, right, you know, with an aggressive attitude, and then he comes and you palm strike him, I personally think that the fist version is still going to be seen by the jury as you were being defensive. You only hit him because he attacked you. Because they can see your whole attitude is stepping back, is defensive, is no, I don't want to fight. Even though you used a fist. Whereas be more aggressive and use a palm, they're still going to see that you were aggressive. So in my opinion, I wouldn't worry too much about that factor. And one last thing just to think about again with this thing about, is it really that likely to break your hand in a fight? Think about how many people you know who have broken their hand in a fight, assuming they kind of know how to punch to some degree. Like, I've got so many friends that they're a bit rough and they get into fights all the time. Nothing's too serious, but they punch people in the head. And none of them, they never come to me like in the week when I see them, oh, I broke my hand this week. They get into fights all the time, but the breaking of the hand, in my experience, doesn't seem to be that common. So I don't think the chance of breaking your fist, to me, doesn't outweigh the benefits of using a fist to the head. As long as you use correct principles, you don't hit with maximum force over a long range, you punch to where your target is rather than following through, things like that. So essentially, learn how to punch properly. And in my opinion, there's not much chance that you're going to break your hand if you do the right thing. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments if you have any views on that. But otherwise, thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Good stuff, guys.